Colonial America, spanning from the early 1600s to the late 1700s, was a period marked by profound challenges and necessary adaptation. The settlers who journeyed to the New World faced untamed wilderness, unfamiliar climates, and the formidable task of replicating European life in these uncharted territories. Hygiene practices during this time were starkly different from those of today, shaped by a blend of religious beliefs, societal expectations, and a limited understanding of science. Although cleanliness was seen as important by many, both as a reflection of personal dignity and moral standing, achieving it in colonial settings was an arduous endeavor. For many, personal hygiene went beyond mere physical cleanliness. It was intertwined with moral and even spiritual dimensions, particularly among religious groups such as the Puritans. To them, cleanliness was not only a sign of respectability, but an expression of godliness. This belief was fundamental to the Puritan way of life, where homes were meticulously kept tidy as a visible marker of inner piety and discipline. Dirt and disorder were viewed as symbols of sinfulness or laziness, making hygiene not only a matter of health, but of morality. The intertwining of faith and hygiene practices reveals how deeply spirituality was woven into the fabric of daily life and social order in the colonies. One of the most telling accounts of early colonial struggles with cleanliness comes from Captain John Smith, a pivotal figure in the founding of Jamestown, Virginia. In his detailed writings, Smith recounts the myriad pests that plagued the settlers. Colonists had to contend with swarms of mosquitoes and flies that infiltrated every space, both inside and outside their homes. He also noted infestations of ants and other creeping insects, and was among the first to mention the term cucaracha, derived from the Spanish cucaracha, referring to the cockroaches that became an inseparable part of life, much like the wooden planks of their cabins. These insects, coupled with poor sanitation, made the challenge of maintaining basic cleanliness even more daunting. Infestations were not selective, affecting both the rich and the poor alike, adding to the already difficult conditions. Even prominent figures in colonial society could not escape these discomforts. A vivid example is young George Washington, who at the age of 16 spent time surveying land in the Shenandoah Valley in 1748. He wrote about a night spent in a cabin infested with lice and fleas, rendering sleep nearly impossible. This account highlights the harsh realities of daily life in early America and the significant obstacles settlers faced in maintaining basic hygiene, not just for health, but as an expression of morality and spiritual devotion. This unpleasant incident left such a lasting impression on George Washington that, for much of his life, he preferred sleeping outside by a campfire rather than in the cramped, infested quarters of colonial homes. The open air became his refuge, offering greater comfort than the stifling, vermin-infested interiors. This preference speaks volumes about the pervasive nature of such infestations and the lengths to which people went to find some semblance of comfort. It also underscores a crucial point. Despite growing wealth and social standing, the inconveniences and hardships of colonial life followed individuals wherever they went. Further illuminating the harsh conditions, George Henry Loskiel, a Christian missionary, chronicled his experiences in the colonies. He described encounters with a particularly aggressive insect, so feared by the local Native Americans that they had given it the name living ashes. Its bite was said to cause excruciating pain, akin to being burned by hot embers. These accounts highlight how the natural world posed shared challenges to both indigenous communities and colonists. In many ways, they remind us that the hardships of colonial life were not confined to human conflicts or political struggles. They also included relentless encounters with a hostile environment. Bathing in colonial times was a far cry from modern hygiene practices. Unlike today, when daily showers or baths are routine, full-body immersion in water was rare and considered unnecessary except in extreme cases. Washing typically focused on the most visible parts of the body, hands, face, and feet, using a cloth and water from a basin. This was driven by both practicality and prevailing beliefs, which often viewed water as a potential carrier of disease. Immersion in water, particularly full-body baths, was seen as risky in some contexts. The notable exception to this practice was infants, who were bathed regularly, a practice that may have been early intuition for building immunity and disease prevention. For wealthier colonists, bathing could involve a dedicated tub, often no larger than a modern basin, where sponge baths were the norm. These tubs, however, were utilitarian rather than comfortable, and soap was a luxury, often imported from Europe or made locally with basic ingredients like animal fat and lye. Most soaps were unscented and harsh, intended primarily for cleaning clothes and household items, rather than personal hygiene. The strong lye in soap could be rough on the skin, making frequent bathing with it impractical. For those less fortunate, rivers, streams, or ponds were often the only option for washing during the warmer months, though this too carried significant risks. Exposure to waterborne diseases was common, and the lack of sanitation exacerbated these health threats. Perhaps the most striking aspect of colonial hygiene practices was the absence of plumbing systems. Homes did not have running water or toilets. Instead, they relied on outhouses or simple pits dug into the ground, often situated dangerously close to living spaces. In crowded settlements, this close proximity led to serious sanitation issues. Chamber pots were commonly used indoors, especially during bad weather, and their contents were often discarded by throwing them out the window onto the streets below. This practice posed obvious health hazards, as waste often found its way into nearby water sources, contributing to the spread of diseases like dysentery, typhoid fever, and cholera. These sanitation practices and the difficult living conditions underscore the many challenges faced by colonial settlers as they navigated a world where both the natural environment and the limitations of technology shaped their daily lives in profound and often painful ways. The consequences of these unsanitary conditions were severe, with waves of illness sweeping through communities, particularly in warmer months when bacteria thrived. During the American Revolution, George Washington's army faced a staggering health crisis that underscored the impact of these sanitation issues. At Valley Forge in the winter of 1777 to 1778, two-thirds of Washington's troops succumbed not to battle injuries, but to diseases caused by poor hygiene, contaminated water, and inadequate shelter. This grim winter camp exposed not only the resilience of the American forces, but also the limitations of 18th century knowledge on hygiene and health. Ironically, British troops in the southern colonies also suffered similar outbreaks of fever and disease, illustrating that sanitation problems were a widespread issue, not confined to one side. In colonial towns, streets were often strewn with refuse, and the lack of organized waste management compounded public health risks. A 2014 archaeological dig of an illegal colonial tavern revealed privy shafts lined with bricks and filled with artifacts like bottles, pottery, and drinking tankards. This discovery shows that privies often doubled as trash bins, revealing the unsanitary ingenuity colonists used to manage waste. Colonial views on hygiene were shaped by the medical theories of the time, which were often contradictory. Some physicians advocated for cleanliness to ward off illness, while others warned that frequent bathing could be harmful by washing away the body's protective oils. This belief reflected the limited understanding of health, where physical and spiritual wellness were intertwined. With little scientific basis for their practices, colonists often turned to religious teachings for guidance on disease and hygiene. For example, Puritans believed that cleanliness in the home and body was not only a matter of health, but also moral and spiritual duty. Oral hygiene was similarly rudimentary, with toothaches and dental problems common across all social classes. Remedies for tooth pain ranged from chamomile and figs to alcohol or opium for more serious cases. Professional dentistry was virtually non-existent, and settlers often relied on blacksmiths, barbers, or apothecaries for tooth extractions. These makeshift dentists would use basic tools and sometimes replace lost teeth with dentures made from ivory, wood, or metal. In some cases, the poor would sell their teeth to provide healthy ones for dentures. One famous dental anecdote involves George Washington, who wore dentures made from a mix of animal and human teeth, not wood, as commonly believed. His dentures, though functional, were uncomfortable and altered his facial expressions, reflecting the physical discomfort many colonists endured due to the lack of proper dental care. Fashion in colonial America also presented unique hygiene challenges. The powdered wig, a symbol of status for the wealthy, while fashionable, was often a source of both pride and nuisance, contributing to the era's broader concerns about personal cleanliness and hygiene. Made from human or animal hair, wigs were not only a fashion statement, but also a practical concern, as they were prone to infestations, particularly lice. To combat this, many men shave their heads, making it easier to wear wigs while reducing the risk of lice on their scalps. However, the wigs themselves could become breeding grounds for pests, requiring regular, often expensive cleaning. Wig makers used boiling water and added fragrant oils and herbs, like bergamot and bay leaves, to ward off insects. The pomade used to style the wigs could attract even more pests, making their upkeep both intricate and labor-intensive. A small yet revealing artifact found in Jamestown in the 1990s sheds light on the importance of personal grooming. Despite the challenges, archaeologists discovered a 17th-century silver ear picker, a tool used for cleaning ears and fingernails. This tiny device highlights that, even in a time when bathing was infrequent, people still tried to manage other aspects of personal hygiene. Interestingly, earwax itself had practical uses beyond its biological function. Colonists, when running low on beeswax, used earwax to prevent thread from fraying, showcasing both their resourcefulness and the scarcity of goods. The colonists' reliance on imported European products extended to hygiene items as well. Scented perfumes and oils to mass body odor were considered luxuries, available only to the wealthy. The average colonist, unable to regularly access such products, often turned to natural scents from local herbs like lavender, rosemary, and mint to freshen both their homes and bodies. Women, tasked with creating homemade hygiene products, sometimes made rudimentary lotions from rendered animal fat and essential oils. The lack of modern hygiene products led to some practices that may seem archaic by today's standards. For instance, women were often advised to use urine as a natural bleaching agent to remove stains or clean hair and fabrics. The ammonia in urine acted as a mild disinfectant and cleaner, though it came with an unmistakable odor. These practices underscore the creativity colonists employed to make do with limited resources. For soldiers, hygiene was both a necessity and a constant struggle. George Washington, a meticulous leader, understood that the effectiveness of his army relied on some degree of order and cleanliness. During the Revolutionary War, he issued orders for soldiers to wash their hands and faces daily and change their shirts weekly. However, compliance was inconsistent, mainly due to supply shortages and the logistical difficulties of wartime. The role of camp followers, women who traveled with the army to perform essential tasks like cooking and laundry, was indispensable in maintaining even minimal hygiene standards. Their contributions were rarely acknowledged in official accounts, but without them, the disease rate among the troops would have been even higher. Life in colonial times was defined by such contradictions. The colonists' innovative spirit, born out of necessity, clashed with a rudimentary understanding of health. The daily battle against disease, dirt, and discomfort was a shared experience for all, regardless of status. The relentless challenges of maintaining basic cleanliness, combined with the physical and social hardships of the era, paint a vivid picture of resilience and adaptation. For modern readers, imagining life with such obstacles raises an intriguing question. Could we endure the realities of colonial existence? Or would the constant struggle with hygiene and the labor-intensive demands of daily life prove unbearable? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned for more insights as we continue to explore the intricacies and hidden stories of early American life.